Hi, I'm John.
And I'm Chris, and welcome to the hot seat.
We're competitors, but we're not. We're actually friends, and I'm in Florida,
I'm in Texas. I've been doing this for 35 years.
and I've been doing it for 28.
We're here to share some stories that we see when we're working with our clients, to share ideas, share approaches, so that you might take away something to help you build your wealth.
Because the reality is, there's a lot of different advice out there, and most business owners, we're both business owners, we don't take enough time to work on the business as much as we work in the business. And so, realistically, when you sit down with your financial advisor, you don't have time to kind of have a drink and talk through some of these things. So, we wanted to come together and do this show so we can help more of you get smarter with your money and get to retirement, whatever that looks like, much faster.
Absolutely. So,
It's the first episode today, and today we are going to cover a couple different things. Chris, what would you like to cover today?
I had a really interesting conversation with a friend recently. He came in to talk to me. He'd grown his portfolio to about $4 million. He was working with a old high school buddy that lives here in Austin. And we were looking at his portfolio. It was primarily mutual funds. Now, with a portfolio of that size, you really should be using other things, more tax efficient, lower cost investments such as stocks, ETFs. He knew this. He knew mutual funds weren't ideal.
How much of the money was in retirement plans versus like taxable trust or brokerage accounts?
It was about half. It was about
Okay.
half. Half was an IRA, half was a non-qualified. And so there really were some tax planning opportunities inside that brokerage account, that non-qualified brokerage account. And so, we did the analysis on his portfolio. I shared with him what we've been doing for our clients. He saw the difference. It was significant. And he looked at me and he goes, Chris, I just don't know how I would handle breaking up with my friend. We do business together. We're in a fantasy football league together. I see him at least once a month. We have lunch. We got to dinner. He just couldn't get his head around the fact that around how he would break that relationship. And so I want to kind of broach this concept of loyalty versus unconditional love, right? I mean,
Yeah.
loyalty is something that's earned. It's usually with professionals. Loyalty is a great quality, and people like to view themselves as loyal. But when it comes to professionals, loyalty is earned. So whether it's your doctor, your dentist, your financial advisor, your CPA, they earn loyalty through their expertise, through their diligence, and through serving you well. The only people in our lives that get unconditional love are kids, right? So the
Yeah.
key is to make sure that you're not confusing where loyalty and unconditional love are kind of intersecting, so that there's an imbalance there, right? And it was clear with his current advisor that it was underperforming. He was paying higher fees. He was missing out on some tax strategies within his portfolio. And so and he was really struggling with that. Have you ever seen a situation like that, John?
I've come across it a lot of times, and it reminds me of a saying. There's two things in life you should always get a second opinion. That's your health and your wealth, right? But it's hard because you're talking about the logical part of it, but the emotional part of it is like, how am I going to tell my friend this, right? And I can tell you firsthand, as a financial professional for 28 years as a fiduciary, if I had a situation where I was not doing the very best for my client, I always look at every relationship as like let me look at this like if I was trying to gain my client's relationship so I never get fired. So I always look at it from, if I were to get fired, what would I get fired for? And that helps ensure that a guy like you can't come pick my stuff apart. Because whatever you try to say, they're like, yeah, we covered that. Here's the reason why. And so I think with clients, they get caught up on that emotional side of the conversation. They can't actually see the dollars and cents multiplied, right? They can't get beyond that to see, like, this is on that kind of money. We're talking about millions and millions of dollars of like lost opportunity and growth, right? And that's just on the asset side of growth. When we get in the taxation side, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars that can be saved. If you've got $2 million in a brokerage account that's taxable, one of the very first things that he could probably do is go back and look at all his previous tax returns at how much capital gains distribution he had to pay taxes on by being inefficiently invested that way. But we're making two different arguments, right? The logical side and then the emotional side of it.
Correct. And one of the things that I pointed out to him, and he's a friend, so I wasn't trying to, go at him too hard or anything like that. But it was like, what does he owe to you? Like, you're being a loyal friend, but the point you just made, John, where what can I be doing better? What where is this where is the service, the arrangement that I have with my client or my friend? Where are the chinks in the armor? Where is it weak? How can I make it better? His friend clearly hadn't done that. So I was like,
Yeah.
there's got to be loyalty's got to be two ways as well. And so, I asked him, I'm like, how much money, how much in taxes, how much lost potential? What's that number? And he looked at me, he goes, man, he goes, I just don't know. It's just too tough.
It's hard to put a number on friendships and loyalty. And here's what I did, and maybe it'll help your friend. I have a friend who, very similar situation over a period of 10 years. I'm working with the family, and from time to time, I would have to talk with him. And every time I would talk to him about the family member, he would always say, hey, by the way, right? And he never wanted me to do too much work because he knew he couldn't break away or wasn't planning on breaking away from his current relationship. And one day I got back from Warrior, and you and I will dive into that a little bit deeper. And I was just feeling a certain way, you know? And so I said to him, I said, hey, listen, every time we talk, you always have a question that sounds like you're second guessing the advice you're receiving. I have a solution for you. Pay my financial planning fee. I will do an analysis on all your stuff. I would tell you where you're exposed, what I would do to fix it. And then you could take that information and you can go to your current advisors and say, hey, I had all this stuff reviewed, and here's what I want to talk about changing, and here's why. And then you could have a conversation with them and make appropriate choices based on my recommendations and what we find. And he said, all right, let's do it. So we rock and rolled. I did all that work for him. And what ended up happening as a result, less than a year later, he ended up transferring everything over to me, because as we began fixing those problems under the planning arrangement we had, he was like, this is really dumb. Like you're coming up with the problem, you're fixing the problem, you're doing all this other stuff. Meanwhile, I'm paying the other guy, and he's my buddy and all, but what is he really doing for me? I'm paying both of you, and that seems dumb too. So it's kind of like, you gotta kind of date a little bit and help him out a little bit if he's willing to pay your fee, and then see what happens down the road once he sees all the value that's uncovering, because the emotional part's tough. I have a client right now who, we do a review in his portfolio, and he's got an account with a friend, and it's not a lot of what he has, but it is money. And when we're doing performance reviews, he's seeing how we're doing versus that other account, and he's like, I would love to bring it over to you, but I just can't call my buddy and tell him I'm moving. And he's like, I'm just too chicken. I'm just too chicken.
It's hard. I mean, and again, it's like, is your buddy going to write that check to you when you retire? Is he going to supplement your income for that gap that's clearly going to be there when you retire?
And the only thing I would say too is I know you're the same way. If a client came to me and he was a friend, if he was my brother, my mom, my cousin, doesn't matter. If they came to me like, hey, listen, here's the situation, da 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 da, and for these reasons, I'm gonna go do this. I would show up at poker, and I would treat him the same way, because I know deep down inside I wasn't doing everything I could for my so-called friend, right? I wasn't showing up the way that or I would at least say, hey, I'm sorry, thanks for pointing these things out. That guy's 100% correct. It's on me. Give me a chance to fix it. But whether he stays or goes, there should be a conversation with any time that someone points out something that your current advisor is doing that had you get a second opinion anyway. If you don't move at all, you should at least go back and address it, and then give it a timeline and set a boundary that says, all right, well, here's the deal. Like, this is just my expectations. And if they're not met, business is business, personal is personal. I hope you understand I'm going to have to do this.
Absolutely. And when I start to work with a friend, I have a lot of friends that approach me. And when I start to work with a friend, I, set some guidelines, when we're, if you want to talk about work, set an appointment. Let's talk about work. I don't want to be at a party and, you bring something up and I'm not in the right mindset, right? And also that if you ever feel like I'm not meeting your needs, if your situation changes and you really believe somebody else can do a better job, go take it, right? Move your account.
And would he be open to possibly hire? Did you guys talk about at all what it would look like for him to hire you under the planning arrangement where you address, or was it strictly a performance issue on the investments?
It was both, there was zero planning being done, and it was planning and performance. And so I did talk to him about setting up the plan. He's talked to his wife about it. We'll see where it goes.
And it's so crazy how many clients out there don't understand the difference between, it's a buzzword out there, fiduciary, we're fiduciaries, fiduciary, fiduciary. And it's like a buzzword that's used in sales a lot by a lot of companies.
Hmm.
And they talk about financial planning and all that, and they're planners, and they've got all these different, alphabets behind their name, but maybe they're a certified planner, maybe they're not a certified financial planner, but they actually aren't doing planning, right? They put together a report, but there's not continuous ongoing meetings that are occurring to address all of the different things that you brought up in the initial assessment of where they are now and where they're looking to go. And it doesn't seem like with people that end up coming to our practice, where it's consistently each quarter, we're addressing it, we're fixing it. We can see if we look back 5 years in that relationship, here's where we started, here's the problems we had, here's what we've improved, and now we're here versus here. I don't see that a lot.
And he's in one of those relationships where there's no planning, there's just investment reports, and there's really, again, he's not acting like a fiduciary, because if he was, he would have him in much lower cost investments. They would be doing some tax strategies around his investments. So he's in really a suboptimal relationship with that advisor. And again, his loyalty is costing him millions of dollars over his lifetime.
And listen, I don't, anyone listening to this, I don't want them to think that you and I are, think that we're the greatest thing since sliced bread and we've got all the answers. There's advisors that do, they're a lot more detailed than we would be in different aspects of it. They're less. I mean, their advisor world is scattered all over the place. I think the point we want to make and drive home is that if you're paying someone a fee to do a service for you, make sure that you're taking advantage of all. It's like flying first class and then sitting in the very back row next to the bathrooms when you paid for first class flights, right? You're paying this money, make sure you're getting the most value from it.
That's a great point, John. So, what should people be looking for when they're interviewing a financial advisor?
So let's just talk about the a very, very brief history of what's happened in the industry, so that, because the industry's changed over the last couple of years, right? It used to be that you would pay a fee to have your assets managed, and the financial planning would be bundled in there. And a lot of people are still running that same thing. You give them $1 million, they charge you $10,000 a year. They do the asset management, investment management, and they also throw the planning in there. But the problem is you're not really getting proper planning. You're getting the asset management, you're getting a financial report. So in financial planning, if you're sitting down with a financial planner, a fiduciary, and you don't start with a list of questions that sound like, where are you today? Let's review your estate planning. Let's review your tax documents, where you're really looking underneath the hood and getting a true financial checkup, not did my mutual fund do better? Or did my investment portfolio do better? But how are my assets titled? How are my beneficiaries set up? Are my beneficiaries correct on all my accounts? What's my tax situation look like? How much capital gains am I paying? What is generating those capital gains? Are they most efficient? If someone's not having that conversation with you prior to getting to the investment side, you're probably not in the right relationship.
Yeah, and I completely agree, because the plan drives the investment decisions in terms of the asset location, the risk, timing, everything. Once you have a plan, the rest of the decisions are much easier, and you can tie them back to the plan on how they're going to help you achieve the results, like hit your financial summit, whatever that is. I couldn't agree more.
And I look at it as if you're going to the doctor to see a specialist, right? Let's say you have a heart condition. You're not going to go sit down with that doctor and the doctor's going to say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put you on the table and we're going to do this. They're going to say, hey, we've got to run some tests on you. We've got to get some results back. We've got to analyze those. We've got to take your age, your health condition, the probability of success with this surgery. We have to talk about what recovery might look like and what kind of support you have around. There's a lot of conversation that goes into the preparation mentally, emotionally, physically of that particular procedure before you even get into where the procedure is. And I feel like that's our business, right? We do all the planning, ask all the questions, not to judge, but to get a clear understanding of how you're situated so that we could begin to mold our recommendations specifically to what you might need to have happen to get you to where you want to go. The investments are like the prescription. They're the thing that you do at the end once you figured out what all the strategies are. Those are the buckets that are going to help implement and drive that, but they are not the key drivers of it.
Correct, exactly. And and what I encourage people to look at this process is, yes, you might expose some shortcomings, some shortfalls, for financial shortfalls, but there's power in that, in those facts. There's power in those knowledge, and you have to start with a foundation of facts to even have a chance to achieve your financial summit. You can't fix a lie. You have to look at the facts, and it can be liberating. And then they can start making informed decisions. Well, you know, I haven't saved X amount of dollars yet this year that I committed to, so maybe we don't take that second vacation. Or, I am on track. I have saved what I want to. Now I can go have fun guilt free. So it really can be empowering.
I'm smirking and laughing because there's going to be quite a few people out there like, you know what? I don't want to be that responsible. I just want to take my trips. That sounds like way too much work. Like I'm doing okay now. Nothing's broken, you know. Everything seems to be okay. Like this is too much work. I'm going to go watch, the fishing channel or the cooking channel or anything else that's a lot more entertaining than the way you guys have to talk about. You're going to get those people who this sounds like a lot of work to them. This sounds overwhelming. They don't want to think about it. So, what would you say to those people? Because what we do is we simplify all that for them. We take a lot of that away from them and we make it very simple. They just have to answer questions. Then we go back and we do all the stuff for them and then present solutions. So, what would you say for someone who might be feeling overwhelmed, don't feel like they have the financial literacy to have the conversation, the energy, or just really want to focus on it, but know at some level it's important.
It is. And for every, hour that you spend with us answering questions, we're going to spend 4 or 5 building everything out. We do the heavy lifting. We guide you through the most, direct and easiest path possible to create your plan. And, we'll make it a turnkey experience, a turnkey solution. Like you said, all you got to do is answer the questions. We'll come back with more questions. We'll fine tune it. Usually takes 3 to 5 meetings to at least get the initial plan done. And then from there, it's whatever categories, whatever area, taxes, investment, estate planning, asset protection, whatever it is, we'll start taking them down one at a time. We'll make it, as easy as possible on you. But to the people who don't want to do it, hey, it might, your situation might work out. You might live a charmed life. But if you're not one of those people and you avoid it, odds are you're going to be held to account to the hard decisions that you didn't make earlier, and they might catch up with you later in life when you don't have the time, you don't have the energy to go out and earn the money you need to do to close those gaps. So why don't we wrap this one up today, John?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought this was a really productive meeting, and I think that I'm looking forward to the future.
Yeah, and of course, any questions that anyone might have about what they should be getting from their current relationship or some advice that they're receiving they're unsure of, we're always here as a sounding board, as a second opinion. It costs nothing to get a second opinion on something. I always say, like, trust that internal gut, that feeling, something's not right. Trust that and get the data that you need to make an informed decision. I have a piece, it's called Top Questions That You Should Ask When Hiring a Financial Advisor. Chris, I know you have one
I
too.
do.
So if you're watching me on my YouTube channel, click on the link below. I'll have that available as a free PDF. Chris, I'm sure you'll do the same thing. The
Absolutely.
important part of this whole segment is that there's a study out there, and I forget the actual stats now, but there's a study out there that says like 70 or 80% of high net worth investors are planning on leaving their advisor sometime soon. And it's not lack of performance, it's lack of meaningful conversation, communication, right? And so this is on the minds of a lot of different people out there. So it's not something we just kind of came up with out of the blue. It's a serious conversation. So as you're thinking about making a shift, we've got resources that can help you ask the right questions so that the next relationship you get into is one that's profitable, that's going to give you everything that you need, and more importantly, you're getting what you're paying for.
Absolutely. So doing asking the right questions in advance will help you ensure that you're going to get into the right relationship. So we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in. And any comments you have, good, bad, or indifference, post it. We're an open book here. So we take criticism well.
Thank you.